Welcome. In this video we're going to be talking about Prefab Variants. Prefab Variants is something that's new to Unity 2018.3 and it's a really cool feature that can really alleviate some frustrations and some issues that you might previously have had with the prefab system. Now you're able to do nested prefabs and also prefab variants, which we will talk about in this video. And without further ado, I think we should just jump right into it. So the scenario I want you to imagine is that we are creating a 2D sprite game where you have a robot type enemy. And this robot can have several different appearances. So you could have a right robot that looks like this thing I'm trying to create, and you can have it look in different other ways. The purpose of Prefabs variants then is that you can have a base prefab called robot, and then you can have a prefab variant for each of your robot types, but they each have some code and some components in common, which you can then edit on the base prefab, and then those changes will propagate down to all prefab variants. And also, of course, the prefab variants themselves can have their own code and their own components, which won't affect all inheritors of that base prefab. And that's what I'm trying to show you now. Firstly, I'll import all the sprites with a pixel per unit of 1. And I put a filter mode of 0. And this is just because we are working with pixel art and it doesn't really matter for the purpose of this video. I thought it would be some nice information for you to know. First, I'll show it the old way. We'll drag one of these robots here onto the hierarchy, and then we will add the components to it, such as a box collider and a rigid body. Then we'll drag this from the hierarchy over to the project hierarchy here, and then we'll have a prefab. Now, what we will do is that we will be able to create a prefab for each of these and add the components separately. And this is a lot of work. Most importantly, if I made some changes in one of the robots, then those changes will not be reflected in the other robots. So if I want to have some change among all of them, like with the scripts and such, that will be a huge problem. A better way is to create a single prefab from one robot and then make that the base robot by removing the sprite renderer on that robot, so we can use it as a base robot. As you can see, we have created that now, and then I'll just rename it to robot and drag that over, and then we have the base robot from where we can derive some new prefab variants. And the way you create prefab variants is by right clicking on that prefab and then select prefab variant and give it a name. We can now then open that prefab and put on the sprite for that prefab. So now we have a first prefab variant with that sprite, and then we'll just create it for the two other robots as well. So for each prefab variant, we will assign the correct sprite on the sprite renderer component. That done, we can now drag all of our prefab variants onto the hierarchy just to create an instance of each, and let's just separate them out a bit. And here we have our very nice prefab variants with their own box collider and rigid body. So now if I take this prefab variant 3 and change the stats box collider to fit within the size of that, you can see up here we have overridden the box collider for the variant. So do not hit apply, because if you hit apply, that will affect the base prefab, and you don't want to do that in this case. But here I will put on a trigger for the base prefab and go back to the other prefabs. And as you can see, this trigger is now activated for all of them, even the one where we have already changed something in the box collider. And that's really the power of prefab variants, that you can separate the different overrides into the different variants, and still when you make changes to the base, it will fit them in nicely. So you can of course change everything that you want between these, and you can also change it in the base prefab as well, and everything just seems to flow nicely. And just to demonstrate that you can also add components to your variants, I'll just add a robot 2 script here onto the prefab variant 1. So I called that script prefab 2, and inside the base prefab you can see that has not been added. So let's try to create a new script for the base prefab called just a robot and add that. And then now if we go into the different prefabs, we can see that prefab variant 2 and 3 have the robot script, and that prefab variant 1 both have the robot script and the robot 2 script. So it also works nicely for your different components. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it and that you now have a better idea of prefabs and prefab variants. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you will give it a like, and if you want to watch more of my videos, I hope you want to subscribe so you will be notified when I make a new video. I also do live streams from time to time, and I hope I'll see you in those in the chat. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.